No, I'm talking about his text message. All right, y'all. We give praise, esteem, and honor to living Elohim in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. We bless this Kadesh Shabbat. Thank him for another opportunity for the hearing of his word. And let's take a trip. John chapter 5, verse 39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they which testify of me. You will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I come in my Abba's name, and you receive me not. Another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one from another, and not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think that I will accuse you. The Abba, there is one that accused you, even Moses, in whom you trust. Had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how should you believe my word? Well, praise be to the living Elohim, indeed. So let's take a trip to Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 24. Proverbs chapter 26. 24, excuse me. There is no 34. Proverbs 26 and 24. He that hate dissemble with his lips and lay up deceit within him. When he speak fair, believe him not. For there are 7 abominations in his heart, whose hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. Whoso dig a pit shall fall therein, and he that roll a stone, it will return upon him. A lying tongue hate those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth work ruin. Let's take a trip to Esther. As I told y'all, we're going to ride out in Esther. I think we're in chapter 7 at this juncture. We are. Remember, we concluded with a feast being about to be prepared for Haman, Mordecai being esteemed as the man whom the king desires to honor. And all of that good stuff. Esther 7 and 1. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. The king said again unto Esther on the second day of the banquet of wine, what is your petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted you. What is your request? And it shall be performed even to half the kingdom. So let's look at petition. Of course, we've already established certain things as it pertains to the testimony, but I want you to think upon this word. It is she Allah. It is a thing that is asked for. It's a request. It is a petition. Let me see something else here. I want you to look at this here, right? You got Sean, Aleph, Lamad, and Hay. Off the top with this petition, you are paired to the staff or the discipline of the head. So you want to behold what has caused you to be paired to that. And that's the hearing of the word. Now I want you to look at something else before we go look at Yahushua doing this himself. Excuse me, in the 17th chapter of John. Oh, I don't care about that, sir. Job chapter 6. Once you come to Job chapter 6 and verse 1. Job chapter 6 and verse 1. And let's go. But Job answered and said, oh, that my grief was thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances together. I want you to look at calamity. It is hava, and that is a destruction and calamity. See, it's two words there for it. They're a little different one. Hi, Yah, but again, it's destruction and calamity. Hey, Yah, and hey. So you're beholding the worship of the man with raised arms. And he's asking that his destruction or his calamity is weighed in the or laid in the balances. I want you to look at balances. Of course, this is Mozan, and this is something that you should know, Shalom, man, is that you got to have a just weight and a just balance. So he's asking for that to be weighed. So let's pause and let's look at the law. Because we were talking about that the other night. If you don't know the law, then you would be cursed. So we need to come to Deuteronomy 25. And we need to look at verse 14. Deuteronomy 25 and verse 14. And it says, you shall not have in your house diverse measures, great and small, but you shall have a perfect and just weight. A perfect and just measure shall you have, that your days may be lengthened in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim give you. For all that do such things and all that do unrighteously are an abomination unto Yahuwah your Elohim. Now this takes us back to a passage in Ezekiel when he says, you say that your way, my ways are unequal, but he said, no, O Yasharal, your ways are unequal because we have an unjust weight and an unjust balance. He was referring to in that passage of a man who repents from all his evil deeds and shall live versus the man who has done righteously and trusts in his righteousness to go through wickedness and think that he should not be killed for it. That's the difference. See, in the eyesight of men, that's unjust. That's an unjust weight and balance. Now, of course, you have Job here saying that I pray that my destruction be weighed in the balance, that it's measured out. Let's look and see in another place, the prophet Habakkuk, chapter 1. And we're going to pick this up pick it up at 1 and 1 and then drop down to verse 12 because I don't need everything else that's in the midst of that. I wanted to just do 12 and be done with it, but I desire the things that started off. The burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see, O Yahuwah, how long shall I cry and you will not hear, even cry out unto you of violence and you will not save? Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there that raise up strife, and there are that raise up strife and contention. Now, we've been talking about that for the course of a couple of weeks, as far as strife and contention, how you have to get rid of the slanderer to get rid of strife and contention. And of course, that's pailing into Purim rolling around, just going through the book of Esther, seeing that Haman was doing the same, because we talked about that in regards to Judas the scribes and the beast, that these men are stirring up strife and contention, which will cause an individual to behold grievance. Now, notice that the prophet is asking the question of, why do you show me iniquity and cause me to behold grievance? Which, of course, is what we happen to the Shiach. You're going to have to understand that a time is going to come where you're going to have to behold iniquity, even though you have not committed any. You're going to have to be willing to suffer for righteousness' sake. This is the next thing that he says, because therefore the law is slack and judgment does not go forth. The wicked do compass about the righteous, therefore wrong judgment proceed. The question of the matter is this: to do the same thing that David did. And when you see in a situation, a circumstance where wrong judgment is going to proceed, you have to seek the Elohim to weigh you in the balance and to reward you according to your works. See, we look at stuff now and say, okay, that's not right judgment, or this, that, and the third. But in a lot of those matters, we speak presumptuously. And why do I say that we speak presumptuously? Because everything that happens to every black person in this country is not because those people are righteous. Because the one thing that we would not like to acknowledge is that Yahuwah is bringing wrath upon people who have reaped up judgment for wrath based off of their works. If you know the text, you know that he told you in Psalms that the wicked are his sword, and that he will use the wicked to chastise and to remove the wicked. You would also know in the book of Job that he tells you to be scared or fearful of the sword because it brings forth punishment. We don't like to acknowledge that because then we would have to acknowledge that Yahuwah would execute us, and that he would execute us because of our continual flaunting of his sovereignty, his power, and his righteousness before his face, and you feel that you could do this with impunity. See, nobody wants to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? I remember years back, I think this was around the time when Mike Brown got killed, man. Brother, I know a lot of brothers don't like him because he a Christian Catholic, man. He's a solid dude, though. He good people, though. And we were discussing that there, that what if the possibility of what happened to that young man was just judgment from Elohim? And most black men, Hebrew men on that panel were highly offended at the thought that Yahuwah would do such a thing. And me and this man were perplexed because the text bears witness to these type of things. But nobody wanted to acknowledge that. All they would do is because they were in their feelings. Oh, so you saying the police can kill us? I'm not saying anything. But what I'm saying is that because the number one is you don't know if a brother repent. Anytime you hear somebody say you don't know if somebody repented, you just know that you're more than likely you're dealing with a sinner. You're dealing with somebody who's living unrighteously themselves. So when they see that event happen, they're seeing themselves. So they don't want to believe that someone is a contrarian and that they very well may be paying for their contrary conduct. Because we all know the law says if you walk contrary to him, you'll walk contrary to you. See, this is the hypocrisy of modern day Yahudim, is that you only want the things of the text to apply to you when they are convenient for you. When there are things that make you uncomfortable or things that pertain to judgment. Because all of you know what Ecclesiastes 8 and 11 says, because a sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, it is privily in the hearts of sons of men to do evil. So because this man does not execute the judgment for your iniquity swiftly, we don't ever want to believe that he would ever execute. But eventually, see, this is the thing which you don't understand. Grace, aka Canaan, aka mercy and favor and pity and compassion, you're not entitled to it. You're not entitled to it. He does not have to extend that to you. He does not owe that to you. He does that because that is who he is. It's more representative of the character of Elohim than it is about anything that you deserve. And we don't want to deal with that. Because see, when you feel like you're entitled to something, you're ungrateful. You take advantage of it, and you don't give the proper honor and respect due to the individual who's extending the benefit. It's a very, very bad place to be if you have a mindset like that. As the text says, there's forgiveness with him that he might be feared, that he might be reverenced. But we feel like you're owed that forgiveness. You feel like you're owed that grace. You feel like you're owed that mercy. You feel like you're owed that pity and compassion. What does he owe you? He was talking about son, and because I've seen the doggone, and there's people going back and forth with it about those numbers that 31% of Black women get divorced versus 17% getting married. The issue is not the number per se. The issue is why most people get divorced. And they get divorced for the most asinine reasons. The same reason, the asinine reasons that we come up with to not serve Yahuwah. You know, and I'm mentioning that because of what's in Micah chapter 6. That's why I said that. Come to Micah chapter 6, you can understand why I said that. Because that's why I mentioned those numbers. Because I'm not focusing on those numbers or that stat, because at this particular moment of the day, I genuinely don't care. But this is why I mentioned it. Micah 6 and 1. Hear now what Yahuwah saith, arise and contend you before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear you, O mountains, Yahuwah's controversy, you strong foundations of the earth. For Yahuwah have a controversy with his people, and he will plead with Yasharal. O my people, what have I done unto you? Wherein have I wearied you? Testify against me. Let me see that again. O my people, what have I done unto you? And wherein have I wearied you? Bear witness against me. Now, come back to Habakkuk chapter 1. This is the reason, right? And I'm just looking at this in the aspect again of a natural situation between a woman and a man. Because 80% of disillusions of marriages are initiated by a woman. So you hear a woman have a lot of issues with a man. But if you're a man and this woman has issues with you, then you would need to do what Yahuwah just did unto us. Because he said, come here, man, let me plead with you. Let's enter into judgment. What wrong have I done unto you? Don't tell me about what you feel. Tell me what wrong I've done to you. Where have I wearied you? Bear witness against me what I have done to you. See, when you strip away what you feel or you felt your desires of I wanted this and want, nobody gives a damn about any of that. What has this person done to you that you can say they have literally transgressed against you? Because I'm saying that because this is what we do to Elohim. You wanted Yahuwah to do this, that, and the third. Now you mad with him. Testify against the man. Where has he wearied you? Enter into judgment and say, according to this, you've done me wrong. Because that's how you contend. Because when you get most people in a room and you ask them, what has this person actually done to you? They don't have anything tangible to say. It's just feelings. And you wonder why households are broken. You wonder why the youth are broken, because people are selfish and full of pride. He didn't give me this, so I'm gone. But the person has never done you any wrong. They actually haven't done anything to you. That's why most people don't like to go to mediation and have a third party challenge the accusations that they spread to other people without that person being present to be able to defend or refute whatever is being said. Because Yahuwah is mentioning this in Micah 6. Bear witness against him by what he has done to you. Because Yahuwah has not done anything to any of us without cause. And that's my point of mentioning that. Because if a brother got killed by the police, is the police justified in killing this man? No. But who's to say that Yahuwah did not move them to do that to this individual so that he could damn both parties? But because we don't understand how Yahuwah works and we don't know him, that is a far-fetched conception for us to put in our brain that he would do that. See, let me give you this Job 19 while we back around this comment, while it's in my brain. Just come on back over here to Job 19. Just come over here and look at it. Y'all know what it is, but let's just look back and see what it say. It's 19 and 29. Matter of fact, didn't make it 28. He said, but you should say, why persecute we him, seeing the root of the matter is found in me? Be you afraid of the sword, for wrath bring the punishments of the sword, that you may know that there is a judgment. Now let's just decipher each and every one of them words. He said you need to beware of the sword so that you can know that it brings forth wrath and that there's a judgment. See, the thing that we don't never want to deal with is that there is a judgment, because that means you're going to have to be accountable. And most people don't want to be accountable. Now, the statement from Job here, because this is Job talking, he's asking, why should we persecute or pursue or harass him, seeing that the root, which is Sharash, which is the root, bottom, lower stratum, people involving firmness or permeance, is found in him. Of course, you know, matter is the bar. So why should we persecute the individual that the root of the business, the occupation, or the word is in him? But he said, be afraid of the sword. For wrath, which is kama, which is heat, rage, displeasure, and indignation, whose wrath? Yahuwah's wrath. That brings the punishments, which is a bond, which is the guilt of iniquity. So when he's telling you and bringing the punishments, he's telling you this is your condemnation or your guilt for being in lawlessness of the sword, that you may know that there is a judgment, and that is then, which is you have a condemnation, a judgment, a cause, a plea. So we need to understand and know that. Does that mean that every time something happens to somebody that's their judgment? Because Job is an example of that. How many of these people who we seeing out here do you know that are actual servants of Yahuwah? We're trying to make sinners be servants of Yahuwah to assuage our own hypocrisy. And we think that that's cool. You wonder why people don't take us seriously. I just heard a dude on the podcast who talked about that. He's like, you sounded like these Hebrew Israelites. And that junk's sad. People don't have a problem with the word. A lot of people have the problem with the hypocrisy and the stupidity of the people bringing it. So therefore, they don't want to fool with it. You have to understand something. As a man, you have to be what you say you are and stand on that unequivocally. That's why most men don't get the respect that they desire, because you bend and fold. Even if a dude got false doctrine, you still ought to respect the fact that he's willing to stand on that and not be swayed and moved just to appease somebody. Now, there's a difference with being proud if you're showing your stance is incorrect. But then we get to the point that you want to browbeat someone to make them be correct. If a person doesn't want to correct their conduct, you move on. You're going about your day, you're going about your life. But understand this, there is a punishment. We can't be out here looking at people. We can't be out here talking about we need to get sinners to repent and then be shocked when sinners get the penalty of their sin. And then cry out to Yahuwah about it. Because most of the people who we see, except for a handful, these people were putting themselves in positions by their actions that led them to interactions, which caused them to get their sins brought to remembrance. If you sit back and take your emotions out to play and look at what individuals were doing, not talking about what their individual interaction with law enforcement, but their actions would led up to their interaction with law enforcement. They were moving in a disorderly and chaotic fashion, which allowed them to have that interaction. Orderly and upright people are not going to put themselves in a position to have interactions with another set of lawless people. This is, again, you're using your three-dimensional brain and not just going by what's in front of you and being moved by how you feel. We're men, you're not supposed to look at things based off how you feel. If we're looking at things based off how we feel, we are equal to a child, a woman, and an animal. And men are supposed to be civilizers of the whole known world. This man gave Adam dominion over all things. Do you really believe that he who has dominion over all things is supposed to operate in a carnal and emotional fashion to make him equal to the things that whom he has dominion over, i.e. the woman, the child, and the animals? That makes no sense. Nevertheless, Habakkuk chapter 1 and verse 12. See, that's what messed up the she-he's. Not the trannies, but the she-he's, who women who want to be men. Because they want to rule and have dominion as men, but they don't have the three-dimensional mental capacity to rule as a man. And that's where the conundrum coming at. Because we were listening to something earlier, and the brother made this statement, which is accurate, is that if there are certain situations that if a woman finds herself in and a man walks up, she will naturally acquiesce and move out the way, no matter how masculine she may be. He gave an example of if a tree falls in the middle of the street and a woman walks up to that tree, she's just going to stare at it. And if a man walks up to her while she's staring at that tree, she is naturally going to move out the way because she doesn't have the skill set, will, or desire to do what is necessary to get that tree out the street. Or if, like a woman he mentioned, a woman's having car troubles, and a man walks up, she is just going to naturally, by instinct, move out of the way. because it's a certain thing that they're looking at. You have dominion over these things. You have rule, but you're not thinking like a ruler. And you're not moving like a ruler. So therefore, no one is respecting you as one. And then most importantly, you're not producing like a ruler. So you want rule without production. In order to rule, you have to show forth that you have the results that show that you can rule. You don't get ruled by product of having a penis, by product that you are born a man. You have to put everything together and manifest that in the physical plane to show that this is a leader and a ruler. And in order to do that, you got to think. If you think like a ruler, then you're going to live, move, and act like one. This is why the text repeatedly tells you to don't think that it'd be robbery, that Yahusha didn't think it was robbery to be equal to Elohim, because Paul told you that you needed to have this same mind. Yahusha himself told you that greater things than him that you would do, because he wanted you to have his mind, which is to have a mind of a ruler. Nevertheless, Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 12. Are you not from everlasting, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, my Kadash one? We shall not die, O Yahuwah. You have ordained them for judgment. Almighty Elohim, you have established them for correction. You are of purer eyes than to behold evil, and cannot look on iniquity. Wherefore look you upon them that deal treacherously, and hold your tongue when the wicked devour the man that is more righteous than he. This is the question that he's asking. John 17. Because let's look at the things that he was asking to get so that he could be weighed in the balance. We still got Job chapter 6 on deck, as well as Esther chapter 7. Now I'm just going to get to the part of John 17 that I prefer to deal with this day, which is the most important part of his entire prayer. Truth be told, because we're looking at what was in Esther about, come to make your petition known. Make your request known unto me. And we want to look at the key component of what Yahushua requested. 17 and 21. That they all may be one, as you, Abba, are in me and I in you. That they also may be in one in us, that the world may believe that you have sent me. The esteem which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I and them, and you and me, that they may be made perfect in one, and the world may know that you have sent me, and you have loved them as you have loved me. Abba, I will that they also, whom you have given me, be where I am, that they may behold my esteem, which you have given me, for you have loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Abba, the world have not known you, but I have known you, and these have known that you have sent me, and I have declared unto them your name, and I will declare it, that the love whereof you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. Oh, ma'am, that is rude. Am I not talking? So why would you talk at the same time? Because it's rude, and you're not being considerate. Learn some decorum. Be quiet. So, with that being said, his number one prayer is for us to be in Elohim. This is his petition. Now, of course, Esther in the natural in the chapter is going to ask for something else. But we're looking at it in regards to the king is asking Esther, or the star, to make a petition. Yahusha is the star because he is the light of the world. And his father, what is your petition? Make your petitions known. This is one of the things of what the text says, that if you serve Elohim, make your petitions known. You see, most of the things that we ask for, because just like I said in Romans 8, sometimes we ask for what we know not to ask for. But the Ruach groaneth for words that can't be uttered and intercedes on our behalf, because most of the time we're asking for things that are self-serving. You have to watch yourself and see if you're operating in the fashion of being self-serving, because rulers don't do that. It's what a couple weeks back I asked you about, how are you useful to the body as a whole? Because if you're a ruler, rulers seek to be useful to their constituency, to the people of whom they serve and the people around them. How can I be a benefit to these people? What is it that I can do to be of value of them, to them? See, if you only think about me, mine, my house, my family, you don't have the mind of a ruler, you have the mind of a servant. And not even, I can excuse me, not even the mind of a servant. You have the mind of a servant, of a lower class individual who will never, more than likely, ever excel in life. Because the more you seek to be a benefit to others, others will seek to be a benefit to you. And that's how you actually build everything. See, a lot of our people used to have the village, but the problem is that people have opted out of the village because you don't want to be held accountable to other people. See, that's what has happened. The village has never departed, contrary to popular belief. People have opted out because people are seeking their own self-interest. So I don't care about the family next door to mine as long as mine is good. So I don't care about being a benefit to them. So they're not going to care about being a benefit to you. That's one of the aspects of what you've seen. And of course, what's in Acts chapter 2 is in Jeremiah and a few other places. These people selling everything they got and having all things in common and moving with the singleness of heart because they looked at each other as one and the same. He didn't look at, oh, that's brother such and such family. I ain't concerned with them. Didn't have that mind frame of. That's another instance of when you see Paul mentioned in Corinthians about Passover, and he was like, people come and bringing food for themselves and not for everyone. He was like, you got houses to eat and drink in. You could have stayed home. Because what are you bringing something only for you for? When there's other people in here of whom you say are your family, how selfish is that? And he directly told him, let me show you what I'm talking about. 1 Corinthians chapter 11. He directly told him, you can stay home. What's your purpose of even showing up here? First Corinthians 11 and 17. He said, now this I declare unto you, I praise you not that you come together not for the better, but for the worse. First of all, when you come together in the house, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it. So first and foremost, there's strife and contention. People are arguing and having differences more than likely about word. But there must be also heresies among you, that they which are approved may be manifest among you. What is he saying? People are bringing false doctrines into the gathering, into the assembly, and they have to be there in order for those who actually have the word to be manifested. That takes you back to what he told Timothy to study that you might be approved, or Elohim, study to show yourself approved. See, again, as a workman, rightly dividing the word. Again, that's a statement for people who preach the word. So he's making that same statement here. Somebody's bringing false doctrine, bringing heresies. Those who are actually sent to teach the word are going to be showed approved by refuting said heresies. And whether y'all realize it or not, there are many of assemblies throughout this earth that this happens. It happens more often than you would think. He said, when you come together, therefore, into one's place, this is not to eat the Lord's Supper. For in eating, everyone take before other his own supper. One is hungry and another is drunken. What? Have you not houses to eat and to drink in? Or do you despise the house of Elohim and shame them that have not? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I praise you not. Now, of course, he's talking about this digs in there, knowing that there's people here who don't even eat on a regular basis. But as long as I get me meat, I'm good. He said, you could have stayed home for that. Because that's selfishness. You're serving your self-interest. You're only thinking about yourself. That is not what our Elohim has taught us, especially not in regards to a man who laid down his life for people whom he had no business laying his life down for, because they were not worthy of said sacrifice. So for someone to show that level of selfishness, that's why the Apostle John told you that you ought to lay down your life for the brethren. Then that's how we should operate. Like, again, the village has never went away. We've just opted out. And you opt out because with a village, there is mass accountability. You're going to have to be accountable to your brother. You're going to have to be accountable to your sister. Everyone's going to have to be accountable to one to another. And people would rather not. See, man, now, and the text bears witness to this, and you can see this in life. That lone wolf stuff, that junk ain't really what it do, especially not for men. It leaves you unprotected. It leaves you unprotected. In a moment of distress, you're not going to have anyone. That just sound good for the moment. When things go down, you're not going to have nobody to stand next to you. You're not going to have anyone to sustain you. And a lot of individuals are going to find that out from opting out. You don't have to opt in, but opting out is going to put you at more peril than opting in is. I can guarantee you that. Come on back over here to Job chapter 6. Because we were looking at his calamity also being weighed in the balance or laid in the balance. And that's what he was asking for. Because you already know that he was exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death, and prayed that the cup might pass. He said, but nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. Weigh me in the balance. Verse 3 of Job 6. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. The poison whereof drink up my ruach. The terrors of Elohim do set themselves in array against me. And we kind of talked about that when we were dealing with the 7 abomination things that lead up to that. Do the wild ass bray when he have grass, or the ox over his fodder? Can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Is there any taste in the white of an egg? The things that my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I may have my request, and that Elohim would grant me the thing that I long for. Even if it would please Elohim to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I yet have comfort. Yea, I would harden myself in sorrow. Let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Kadash one. Paul, Psalms 40. Notice that he said, grant me the thing that I long for. We just read in John 17 what it was that he longed for. Now, of course, that word for long for is the word for hope and expectation, which is to give up. So what is he longing for? The thing that it would please, and he said, even if it would please Elohim to destroy him, that he would loose his hand and cut me off, then he would have comfort. Now, comfort here is Nechemah, a word we talked about before, comfort or consolation. What is his consolation? Nechemah is the same word used in Psalms 119 and 50. This is my comfort in my affliction, that your word has made me alive. Psalms 40. You could pick it up at verse 7. You could pick it up at verse 6. Psalms 40 and 6. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire. My ears have you opened, burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book, it is written of me. I delight to do your will, O my Elohim, yea, your laws within my heart. I have preached righteousness in a great congregation. I have not refrained my lips, O Yahuwah, you know. I have not hid your righteousness within my heart. I have declared your faithfulness and your salvation. I have not concealed your loving kindness and your truth from the great congregation. Withhold not your tender mercies from me, O Yahuwah. Let your loving kindness and your truth continually preserve me. So what is the thing that he's seeking comfort and that he is longing for? That he will not suffer his Kadash one to see corruption. This is his hope and this is his expectation. In the instance why he told Martha, I'm the resurrection of the life. Whosoever believeth in me shall never taste death. Believe you this, because this is your hope and expectation. This is why he told you that he will avenge you speedily, but nevertheless will he find faith upon the earth. This still is taking us back to Mordecai and Esther, because their hope and expectation was the salvation of Elohim. See, everything is always going to go back to the hope and expectation of deliverance by Elohim, which unfortunately in this life, most people don't possess. Most people don't believe in this man and trust in this man to expect to receive anything. Let's return back to Job chapter 6 for a few more lines. Or do I even desire to go into that? Because that is going to divert into some other things. Esther chapter 7. We could use them, but not for what we're dealing with right now. Esther chapter 7 and verse 3. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I found favor in your sight, O king, and it pleased the king, let my life be given at my petition and my people at my request. Look at what she asked. Let her life be given, which is what Yahushua petitioned Elohim for. He knew that his life was to be given. That if there was con or favor found in the sight, to let that life be given for the people or his soul, the Nephash. Now, request, right? That is Pakasha, which is a petition or a request, because he was asking for the life of the people to be given. See, at the giving of Mashiach is the people given life as well. But let's continue and see on. Listen what it said: for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Well, let's look at countervail. That is Shavah. That is to agree with, to become like, or level, or to resemble. So the enemy could not resemble Elohim. Damage here is Nazak, and that is injury or damage. So let's look at this again. For we are sold. Let's deal with it. Isaiah 52. If you're going to do it, let's just go on and do it. Ain't that right? You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? No, you don't. So why would you say ain't that right? Why would you participate in something? You just want to go to bed, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, you do. You just don't know it yet. I feel like I'm in the wrong place. Isaiah 52. No. Yeah. Yes, I did. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion. Put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the Kadash city. For henceforth there shall no more come into you uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake yourselves from the dust, arise, sit down, O Jerusalem. Loose yourself from the bands of your neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus saith Yahuwah, you have sold yourselves for naught, and you shall be redeemed without money. Now, remember, I'm trying to think about something. I'm trying to think, do I want to do that? You know what? Come over here to Psalms 40. Psalms 44 and 4. We're good in Isaiah 52. You know that you sold yourself for nothing. This woman just stated, Esther just stated to the king, that we are sold. Sold is Makar, which of course is the sale, mean, Kaf, and Raj. That we know that Yahusha had to be subdued by shedding his blood. Now, we just seen that you sold yourself for nothing, you shall be redeemed without money. We know that what happened, Haman paid in order to do this. See, you sold yourself for nothing. Haman didn't realize he sold himself for nothing, even though tangible goods were given. But let's continue. Psalms 44 and 4. You are my king, O Elohim, command deliverances for Jacob. Through you will we push down our enemies. Through your name will we tread them under that rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. But you have saved us from our enemies and have put to shame them that hated us, which you're going to see with Haman. And Elohim we boast all the day long and praise your name forever. Now, again, what we read in Job, along with Psalms 40, is that he stated that he did not conceal his words. You've seen that in John 17, Well, he stated what? That he had declared his name unto his apostles and they had received it. Now, of course, this is again reference to Hebrews. But the thing is, right, let's take you back to the parable of the talents of the servant who hid his talent. Is that what a lot of individuals do? Is they want to conceal the word. See, you thinking by telling somebody they're Israel or talking about this, that you're not hiding the word, but you're not proclaiming the goodness and the faithfulness of Elohim, which is contained in the mystery and the gospel and the witness of his only begotten son, which bears witness of the grace, mercy, consolation, resurrection, and salvation of his people through this one particular man. See, we don't want to have that conversation because I keep telling y'all that takes the conversation off of you. And it puts it on that you're going to have to declare the righteousness of Elohim and Elohim alone. And we don't like to do that because men have low self-esteem. They're of low worth. I told you this before. Now, of course, the text bears witness to this. Not a lot of what you would call high caliber individuals in the financial realm or high status individuals who are consistently used to preach his word. It's usually men of lower degree. But those men of lower degree, we're talking about as far as social status and finances is concerned, that he is used to preach the word. That doesn't mean everybody who preached the word was broke and didn't have no bread. But also whether they had bread or not, Yahuwah opened up the hearts of many to sustain these men, and most of the people who they were around were righteous enough to know that these were men of Elohim and that it was their duty to do that. But again, that's the village aspect. These people did not opt out. These people also understood these men were here for their benefit and that Elohim was with these men. So to do for them was to do for Yahuwah. See, we don't have that type of mindset anymore. But I know why we don't have that mindset anymore, and I understand. The church has fleeced many. So you looking, I ain't getting this nigga nothing. But that's another conversation. I'm just mentioning that as far as the collective agreement of righteous people of how they looked on one another. So when you look at all these men, all they ever spoke about was Yahuwah. Yahuwah was their focus. Yahuwah was the main thing. That's not the case anymore. Because now you got so many niggas who are nobodies and are nothing, who have picked up the word to try to do this and get attention on them in order for some type of notoriety, socio-economic boost to rise in some manner of status. And we cap for these dudes. You know, we Israel, brother. No, this nigga's trash. These are squares. These niggas are busters. These are not real dudes. And you know these are not real dudes. You know these dudes wouldn't be anything in life without this avenue. And you giving passes to niggas who don't deserve passes. Just because we dealing with the word don't mean you co-sign a whole nigga. A sucker nigga, you don't co-sign that. Man, most of us know these dudes is busters and flawed. Man, you got a whole bunch of broke niggas still talking about they prophets of the Lord. They got to preach on Facebook and they wives taking care of them. Grown men in the word who let their old lady take care of them. Well, you know that's not the way of Yahuwah for no grown man to let no woman take care of him. Well, that's not even Yahuwah's makeup. And y'all know that's not in his makeup. You know that's not in his spirit, it's not in his character to allow Yasharal to take care of him. And we know too many dudes speaking in this man's name, and them boys on that. And them boys on that. And we co-signing that. And we co-signing it by being silent. By not saying nothing about it. You stamping that and you saying that's official. Well, that junk ain't official. Because see, we don't care these prophets of the Lord. This nigga a prophet of the Lord. This nigga's not working because he is consistently and constantly preaching the word. This nigga's not working because he don't want to. Because he doesn't want to. Is it different than, like you say, like Paul said, don't muzzle, quoting the law, don't muzzle the ox that tread out the corn. That man laboring in the word. He said, you supposed to do that. What's wrong with you? The master even told you that. This is what these boys doing, and they done gave up their whole life to do this, and you can't give a nigga a hot plate. You can't send a nigga something to help him on his journey to the next spot. And it's not like these boys seeking that from you. But what does that say about you that you would rather somebody be useful to you, but you don't have a desire to be useful to them, because that's really what the point is. You want to use him up for his value, but you don't want to give any value back. That's selfishness. You know what I'm talking about? That's where we at with it. Which, if you pay attention, because each know what I'm talking about, if you pay attention when you see what's in Acts 2, that's really all that was about, was individuals being useful to each other. Well, shoot, bro, come on to my house. We got this over here. Well, I got this over here. Well, I can use this and you can use that. Everybody benefits. It's not see, everybody's so worried about getting exploited. 99.9% of the time, you're worried about getting exploited for two reasons. Either you've been exploited or you want to do some exploiting. And you don't want to fool with nobody, because you know if that was you, you would try to milk it for everything you could get and give nothing in return. When the man has already told you to lend and ask for nothing in return, because you're not looking to get nothing from heaven, because you're greedy and you selfish, trying to hold over to stuff that don't even last forever. Because you don't believe that you're going to get paid back at the resurrection of the last day. You're looking for your benefit now. And he'll give you your benefit now, but you're not going to get anything at the last. Now, I'm not telling you to be no fool with your resources, but good grief. We say that we want unity and we say we want to come together and all this stuff, but niggas is individual entities. You're selfish. Even when you look at the geopolitical world, countries that are isolated fall off the map and degrade. You can't be isolated and think that you're going to stand. That's case in point. Even though it was through quote unquote embargoes and things of that nature, Cuba became isolated and it became a very poor country than what it was before it was isolated, because they had no allies. You know, you got to have allies. You can't just be out here and say, I don't need nobody. I'm going to be over here by myself. Not as a man. That's stupid. And if any man has ever told you that, you need to go find him and tell him he's a jackass, because he gave you piss poor information. A man is only strong as the fourth is the network of individuals he has at his disposal. And if you think it's wrong for you to have a network of individuals at your disposal, I'm here to tell you that you got incorrect instruction in manhood, whoever told you that. I thank the Lord for and that was a white man told me that as a kid. And the business mentorship, he said you got to have people at your disposal. And I've told you this before. When I started to stop selling dope and say, hey man, I'm finna go over here and do this here, I looked up and say, dang, I have to go out here. I was like 22 at the time. I got to make a whole new network of people, because none of my friends can assist me in what I'm seeking to do, because all of them sell crack. So I'm trying to come over here and do this, and I don't have a network of individuals that can assist me in that endeavor, because all of my friends are over here doing this. Now, when we were over here doing this, there was a plethora of individuals who could be called a smorgasbord, if you will, a cornucopia of different individuals at our disposal that we could hit up on the phone and get certain things done in that illegal lifestyle that we were living. You know what I'm saying? But now you want to come over here and you haven't made any connections with anybody. You don't have anybody you can call. You know what I'm saying? And why would you want to have in your network a bunch of broke, nothing, doing nothing niggas? What do they serve? You know what I'm talking about? That's no difference on the spiritual side of things. This man say, I'm a companion of all those who fear you. I and you and me. Why would you want a network at all? That is the wrong network of which again is for Acts chapter 2, because we look at the resource part, but you're forgetting the biggest part, that these were 3,000 souls who were added unto Elohim on that day, and that these men were a spiritual network one to another. You're talking about prayer and fasting one for another. You're talking about men carrying one another's burdens one for another. You're talking about all of those things. See, again, because of the individualistic stylings of the United States of America, men have been taught to go alone and be alone and go alone. And that is the fastest way to go nowhere. Nevertheless, Psalms 44:9. You have cast off and put us to shame, and go not forth with our armies. You make us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. They have given us like sheep appointed for meat, and you have scattered us among the heathen. You sell your people for naught, and do not increase your wealth by their price. You make us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them around about us. You make us a byword among the heathen and a shaking of head among the people. My confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face have covered me. For the voice of him that reproach and blaspheme by the reason of the enemy and avenger. All this has come upon us, yet have we not forgotten you. Neither have we dealt falsely in your covenant. Our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from your way. Now, I want you to look at the soul for not. That's that. Of course, you don't sell this car. When we look for not, of course, this is home. So wealth is riches, substance, price, high value. Hey, ooh, and noon. You can behold the securing of life or the sacrifice of life because that's what you've been sold for. Because he said you sell your people for riches and wealth. And he say, but you do not increase their wealth by price, which is makar, or their price or their hire. So even though you sold them for wealth, you did not increase or multiply their price. So they did not gain anything. Now, when you look at this here, you sold your people for not, and you're looking at what we're looking at in Esther 7, where she states, so we are sold, I and my people. What sold us? We were sold for sin. But remember what it says in Corinthians in regards to Hamashiach being made poor. Let's look at it. 2 Corinthians 8:9. Second Corinthians 8:9. For you know that the grace of our Lord, the mercy of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, that though he was rich, yet for our sakes he became poor, that through poverty, that through his poverty, that you through his poverty, might be rich. So what are we looking at, right? Of course, y'all know that's a proverb. That there's who have great riches yet have nothing. And there's him who make himself poor yet have great riches. See, remember, you had everything, but he sold you to make you a reproach. Of course, you know the reproaches of them that reproached thee fell on me. He ended up being a scorn, a mocking, and derision to everyone around him. And he was a byword among the heathen, and everyone shake their head, confusion and all of these things. They were blaspheming. But in all of that, Yahushua did not forget him, nor dealt falsely in that covenant. That is a lesson for us. And what you see being described in Psalm 44 for an act of deliverance from Elohim, it's the same with it. Just because you're being persecuted, shamed, and ridiculed and sold does not mean that you fold. Because Yahushua didn't fold when he was faced with that same situation or circumstance, which of course this is bearing witness to. But we're looking at the selling part because we have been sold, but we sold ourselves. Now, of course, when you look at Haman, he paid money to be able to influence the king to destroy us, which the beast is going to follow down that same road, which, of course, what we're looking at is the very thing that you seek to have done to another shall be done to you. Let's return to Esther chapter 7. And notice that it said that I and my people were sold to be destroyed, slain, and to perish. You know what? Come to Ezekiel chapter 5. Let's just look at Ezekiel about it. Ezekiel 5:5. Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, this is Jerusalem. I've set in the midst of the nations and the countries that are round about her. She have changed my judgments into wickedness more than the nations, and my statutes more than the countries that are round about her. She have refused my judgments and my statutes. They have not walked in them. That is another thing that we don't like to deal with. That you did worse than these people who you like to talk about. You would have to sit back and pause. How can you talk about how wicked somebody is when you were as wicked and more so than them? And even if you look at our people now, just look at it, all the negative stats that you could come up with, you're number one. Now, of course, you have a highly likely, of course, now they're not going to purport the high level of negative numbers for themselves. It doesn't serve them to do so. But see, if you had a three-dimensional mind and the mind of a ruler, you would understand that and you would know that. Why would an individual in his own kingdom tell other people who he rules over how bad he's doing? Ask yourself, does that make sense? You don't run around and tell your neighbors the negative stuff that's going on in your household. So why would you expect them to do that? They're not going to come to. They were like, it was a drug war for us. It's a disease for them. Well, what do you expect? It's their land. They're going to take care of their kids. You're not their kids. They don't care about your kids. But you want them to care about your kids. And the sad part is that you don't have the gumption and wherewithal to say, well, if Mr. Charlie ain't going to do it, I'm going to do it. Matter of fact, I'm not waiting for Mr. Charlie to come do it. Because what you're looking for is, why won't you treat my kids with the same compassion versus making sure that there was never an environment to cause your kids to want to get high and want to sell dope? Because when you look at the opioid epidemic, most of them are not selling opioids, they're using them. When you look at us, we would see, they knew you were poor. So they knew they could drop guns and drugs in your neighborhood and you would slaughter each other for it. See, they played on your insecurities and your hunger. But I get it though. You know what I'm saying? How would the people be ready for that? You're in the midst of poverty and somebody drop off bricks of cocaine and weapons in your neighborhood. And somebody who had no money had $100,000 in a week. Now somebody else over here who ain't eating, he's going to begin to be envious and jealous. Now somebody gives him a little bit of cocaine and a weapon. And that's how that proceeds. So we can see how that would roll. But we've been so conditioned to depend and lean on them, how we supposed to be leaning on Yahuwah. I'm talking about us in America. Now, I can't speak for our people in any other place, but just us here. When anything negative happens, you're looking to Mr. Charlie to lean on him and asking Mr. Charlie, what is he going to do to make it better for me? Why are you looking that for him? And then when he seeks to make it better for himself, you're upset, like, well, why you're not doing that for me? Why should he? Why are you looking for him to do what you could do for yourself? That is the mind of a ruler. As we've said many times over the course of years, that's why they don't respect you. And if I was them, I wouldn't respect you either. Because a man doesn't look for another man to do what that man can do for himself. No man is going to respect that in any culture. And the men know that. Men respect men who seek to help themselves, and they will seek to help them. But if a man is not seeking to help himself, men don't respect that, and they're not going to help him. But see, that's the mind of a woman, because of whether a woman is helping herself or not, someone will help her. Because she's deemed to be the weaker of the two. Go sit down. It's for survival and fending for herself and things of that nature. That's not a knock on women. That's just anatomically and genetically and intrinsically correct. But a man is brother mentioned this day, and this is accurate. It is unspoken with men that men are supposed to produce. Unspoken. You know what I'm saying? Whether anybody's ever told you, every young man is looked at and he is expected to produce something. And if he doesn't produce something, no one is going to respect him. They're not going to respect what you have to say. They're not going to respect anything you got going on. Now you have a generation of young men who feel like they should be respected even though they're not doing anything. And then they're looking for someone to do it for them. But they're not doing anything for themselves and are upset when no one respects you or helps you. See, now Yahuwah has told you, seek me and you shall be found. Ask and it shall be given. There's something that you're going to have to do, and then he's going to respect what you're talking about. See, an individual just feel like Yahuwah just supposed to do. Same type of attitude. That's why John the Baptist told them people, bring forth fruits meet for repentance. You're going to have some type of result to show. And as men, we done went away from having, and it don't matter what you're doing. If you in the word, it's got to be some type of result that the word is benefiting and profiting you. You're going to have to show some. You just can't be a man and have no results and think niggas going to respect you. And that's where we're at. That's why we're looking to them. And they looking at you like, no, okay, no. For what? You're not even doing it for yourself. Because a lot of things that we want to do, you want to try to bring attention to it, get it on the news, because you don't really want to help people or help yourself. We want the notoriety. We want the fame. We want to be the one who, oh, I did this. That's the pride and the ego. That's why Moses was described as the meekest man on the earth. That's why Yahushua was meek, because they were focused on the solution to the benefit of everyone and not bringing attention to themselves. But that's another conversation for another day. Let's continue. Verse 7, Ezekiel 5. Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, because you multiply more than the nations that are round about you, and have not walked in my statutes, and neither have kept my judgments, neither have done according to the judgments of the nations that are round about you. Excuse me. Never mind. Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, behold, even I am against you, and I will execute judgments in the midst of you in the sight of the nations. And I will do in you that which I have not done, whereunto I will not do any more the like because of all your abominations. Therefore the fathers shall eat the sons in the midst of you, and the sons shall eat the fathers, and I will execute judgments in you, and the whole remnant of you will I scatter into all the winds. Wherefore, as I live, saith Yahuwah Elohim, surely because you have defiled my sanctuary with all your detestable things and with all your abominations, therefore will I also diminish you. Neither shall my eye spare, neither will I have any pity. A third part of you shall die with pestilence and with famine. They shall be consumed in the midst of you. A third part shall fall by the sword round about you. And I will scatter a third part into all the winds and draw out a sword after them. Therefore shall my anger be accomplished. I will cause my fury to rest upon them, and I will be comforted. And they shall know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken it in my zeal, when I have accomplished my fury in them. See, that's a hard pill to swallow. Because remember, she said, we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed and to slain and to perish. But notice the other thing back in Esther chapter 7 and verse 4, she said, but if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, so the enemy could not resemble the king's damage. Now, that's talking about Satan. If we look at it on the spiritual aspect. Because we had been sold into bondmen and bondwomen, she said she would have held her peace. Now, see, there's a difference in that, because Yahushua said he that commits sin is the servant of sin, and the servant abide not in the house forever. So when we look at this here, right, we've sold ourselves for nothing, because we're bondmen and bondwomen. We have to hold our peace. See, it's when you realize that you're going to be destroyed and slain and perish for your sin, that now you cry out to Elohim and seek petition for deliverance. But see, even with all of that, the enemy or the adversary, he can't resemble the injury of the king, which takes us back to Micah chapter 6. What have I done against you? Plead against me. What damage has Yahuwah done unto you, contrary to the damage you've done to him? Because that word also means injury. Have you injured him? See, this is the thing as forth as light is here. You see a lot in our society with men arguing with women and women arguing with men. But all the arguments really come from is something as simple as this. What you thought you were getting on there? That's what you wanted? That's what you got. Is this. Women ask for freedom. But guess what? Yasharal, you asked for freedom. And you got that freedom. But then you've seen the things that happen when you got the freedom, and you want that man to come through and still be God with your freedom. Same way that woman wants you to be a man with her freedom. And you can't have both. You can't ask Yahuwah to be Yahuwah, but you're not going to be Yasharal. You can't ask a man to be a man, but you want to be a man in a woman's body. You can't do that. Because he told you to seek the ancient past. Ain't nothing wrong with the old way. The old way always been good. The old way always worked. Let's put it to you this here, right? Because I had talked to a young lady about this here before, and she was always mentioning, well, how is a woman, and I've told you women this here, right? I ask you, what's your value to a man, and the only thing you can tell me is cooking and cleaning. It's not valuable to him. I've told you this before, that valuable to a man is specific to each man. But to put it in the most simplest terms is, how do you contribute to his plan? What skills, what do you do that is going to, at the end of the day, be a part of what he's doing? See, you want him to value what it is that you do, even if what you do does not contribute to him. See, you don't want to be valuable to Elohim because you don't want to figure out what it is that you can be valuable to contribute to him. This is taking into account that what, and I'm going to mention what he told Peter and John. He said, well, if I told him to sit here till I get here, what is that to you? Because if that's a valuable contribution for me, for him to sit right here, that's between me and him. But if I told you to go feed my lambs, then that's how you're valuable to me. See, this is when we were talking about in regards to the gifts. See, everybody want to be a preacher. Everybody ain't going to be an apostle. Everybody not going to be no pastor. Everybody not going to be no teacher. Everybody ain't going to be no prophet. But for those who have the ruach of wisdom to be able to give somebody some skill to how to conduct themselves, that's how you valuable to this man. If somebody has the ruach of knowledge, and I ain't talking about knowledge of no worldly things, I'm talking about word-wise. And you're able to benefit, that's how you're valuable to this man. If you're able to be a help, aid, and relief to someone who has nothing, that's how you're valuable to this man. And when I say to someone who has nothing, I'm talking about someone who is in the body. That's not a value to him if you're feeding homeless people. That's not to say that you should not feed homeless people and that you should not have compassion on them. That's not what I'm saying. But that's not a value to him because they're not in him. If they're not in him. Because if we're more quick to feed people who are not in him than to feed people who are. Because he said, he that giveth to the poor giveth to his maker. Remember what Yahushua said? They said, well, when were you hungry and naked and we fed and clothed you? When you did this to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. So that's how you're valuable to him. But see, the problem is that the average man, aka Asheral, aka a woman, you don't want to figure out what that man is doing so you can be useful to him and what he is doing. So you feel like if I'm cooking and cleaning, I'm useful to him. You are not. Those are standard things. He could do that for himself. The woman was created to be a helpmeet. So that means Yasharal is a helpmeet to Elohim. How are you useful to him? Remember, he said you got to purge yourself from these things so you can be a vessel meet for the master's use. So how are you useful to him? That's how you show yourself valuable. See, some things, does your man need to teach you that? Absolutely. Could you send her somewhere to be taught to do things for you? Absolutely. But as a woman, if you really fooled with the nigga and you seen it was something he had going on, you would take the time to learn what that is so you could be useful to him without him telling you. See, you want a man to do things for you without you telling him, but you don't want to reciprocate that. You don't want to reciprocate that because you really only want the benefit of the resource, but not to be an asset in attaining the assets. And that's something that you have to look at. Everyone who has that's why the master in that parable of talents went off on money. Because you want the benefits of the asset without being an asset. And that's selfish. And you are a wicked and slothful servant. You serve no purpose. See, that hits and is bitter to the soul for the average person because you feel like you're valuable just by reason of your existence, and you are not. Now, we were talking about this because of the clip that Kevin Samuels had talking to these white women. And he told this white woman something that every man already knows. Me and we were talking about this Thursday. A woman comes out her mother's vagina and she has inherent value off the top, especially if she got good genes. If you're a beautiful woman, I ain't talking about you beautiful because you think you're beautiful. I'm talking about universally recognized all across the globe. That everyone see you. Not saying, oh, you're cute, you pretty, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Because I'm here to tell you, a lot of people tell people they're cute and pretty just to be nice and not hurt people's feelings. Not because they genuinely accept that you are one of the most beautiful people, or genuinely believe that you have a pretty face. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're ugly, but that just means that there are women that anywhere they go, no matter the city, no matter the state, no matter the country, no matter the nationality of people, they will be regarded as being a pretty woman. That woman has inherent value off top. If that monkey ain't been tampered with and she's got a real pretty face, you could put her value $250,000 or higher. But the minute she begins to smoke and to drink and to develop bad character traits and habits and start tossing that coochie around, that value goes down. It goes down. That's reality. And it's been reality since Adam was made from the dust of the ground. But a man, he has no value when he is born. Absolutely none. Not a single solitary cent. Which goes back to the statement that we mentioned earlier. He has to produce in order to have value. See, a man doesn't have value by reason of existence. He has to put in work and develop it. And most young men are not told that and don't want to hear that. Because you mad at the woman for having value for being born. Get over it, my nigga. Get over it. Same thing I heard a brother say, and I done told a couple people this in my time. I done called my phone with that food. Nigga talking about life ain't fair. Whole nigga, if you don't get off my phone. Nigga, that's some sucker buster junk to say life ain't fair. To hear that from a man. What type of man talk like that? Who cares if life's fair or not, nigga? You supposed to dig down deep and overcome it. Because when you look at what Mashiach had to face, that wasn't fair. Elohim had to become a man and deal with sinful men and be persecuted and overthrown by men who he was more righteous than. And he didn't scream, this ain't fair. He overcame it. So we don't want to hear that. But that's the feminization, the wussification of men in this present day society. Because you cry about what ain't fair. The playing field ain't even. Who cares if the playing field is even or not? How you gonna play the game, son? Oh, the game rigged. Well, how you gonna figure out how to unrig it? I'm mentioning that because it teaches us to have a mind of a woman, to murmur and complain versus figuring out a plan to overcome something. Because this is one of the reasons why your women don't respect you. They're not respecting you because you're not figuring anything out to produce something. You're complaining and asking another man to be your daddy. You have a father. He exists in heaven, and your Redeemer sits at his right hand. Why are you seeking to people who cannot save? That's the point of what I'm talking about. Because he tell you that in Lamentations. You're seeking a people who cannot save. You put your trust in the shadow of Egypt. When everything go down, we don't seek to Elohim. We're seeking to Sleepy Joe. You're seeking to Congress. You're looking to other men and saying, what are we going to do? Because you don't want to seek the Elohim, because you know your prayers are not going to be accepted, because you don't believe that he's going to do it. This ain't even got to deal if you sinning or not. You don't even believe that he's going to do it. You're ashamed that somebody go mock you. There you go praying to Sky Daddy. You worry about the ridicule, scorn, and mocking of sinful men. Man, damn them men. They've made their choice. Why would you be ashamed to make supplication to your Elohim in their face? Amen. We ashamed of it. That man said you ought to always to pray and not to faint. Nevertheless, we doing Ezekiel 5. Let's hit back to Esther chapter 7. 75. Then the king Xerxes answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he? Where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? Esther said, the adversary and enemy is the wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. The king, arising from the feast of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw there was evil determined against him by the king. So pause. Where from the feast of wine did he head to? Where did he find Haman at? What did we just read? Where did he find Haman at? Pay attention. Somebody tell me where he found Haman at. Little girl, come here, please. Cast this upon the trash can for me, please. Thank you very much. Where did you just read where he found Haman at? Oh man, this is just this rough. Literally, it's literally just a moment ago. Where did he just find Haman at when he arose from his feast of wine? Well, I got all night, so. Well, nobody in the written. Indeed, Kara. In the garden. Now, where did they find Mashiach at? In a garden. Where was the sepulchre where no man was ever laid at? And he went in that garden after where? The feast of his wine. And he see that he went to stood up to make request for his life when he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. What did Yahusha do when they went off into that garden? He went to go make request from his life because he knew evil was determined against him. Esther chapter 7 and verse 8. The king returned out of the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine. Haman was fallen upon the bed wherein Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in my house? And as the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, stand in the house of Haman. Then said the king, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. That is shakak. That is to subside, to abate, to decrease. Shan, Kaf, and Dalit. So after a consumption of subduing, there was a hanging. And now let's look at this. Romans chapter 5. Because after Haman is hanged on the gallows, or after Mashiach is hanged from the tree, the Father's wrath is now abated. Romans chapter 5, yes, ma'am. Romans 5. I read verse 1, ain't gonna hurt nobody. Just because I feel like sharing. Listen to what it says. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have shalom with Elohim through our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach. See, the house of Yasharal was able to have shalom through Mordecai because of his faith in Elohim, because all of this was birthed from Mordecai. Because Mordecai is the one who told Esther to tell all the people to do what? To fast. To deny themselves, because you know that you fast so that you can be what? Heard on high. by whom also we have access by faith into this mercy wherein we stand and rejoice in the hope of the esteem of Elohim. Not only so, but we esteem in tribulations, knowing that tribulation work patience. Mordecai displayed that. We've already seen that and read that when we began this journey through the book of Esther. Mordecai displayed that. Because he told her, baby, you don't even know if you was raised up for this particular time. But whether you do it or not, salvation is going down. And not only so, we esteem in tribulations also that knowing that tribulation work patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. Because now when they fasted to Elohim, they experienced Elohim. Therefore, they had an expectation of Elohim, which takes us back to what we read in Job chapter 6. And hope make not ashamed. And of course, he is the chief cornerstone. All that believe on him shall not be ashamed. Yahushua was not ashamed, and Mordecai was not ashamed. Elohim will never put to shame anyone who puts their trust in him. So when you understand that tribulation begins to work to patience, which is the exercising of your faith, you begin to experience the works of Elohim. Therefore, you have hope in Elohim, and therefore Elohim will not put you to shame because he knows that you trust in him. Which means that you would have developed the mind of Mashiach, which would mean you would have the mind of a ruler. To have the mind of Yahushua is to have a mind of a ruler. That's what I was referring to in regards to talking about, like, why are you scared of the police? Why are you looking at these people as they're superior to you? That's not the mind of a ruler. That's the mind of a peasant. See, you can have material items and still be a peasant because you think like one. You having a Lexus, a Benz, a nice car, house, clothing, jobs, trinkets don't mean you the mind of a ruler. You're just a peasant with nice toys. You still think like one. See, the thing that they fear more than anything is that they fear that you have the mind of a ruler, but not the mind of a carnal ruler, but the mind of the ruler of heaven and earth. If you have the mind of the ruler of heaven and earth, you're moving in a different fashion than them. You're moving in a completely different fashion than them. That's why he said, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You've overcome them. But see, this is the thing. You don't want to overcome them. You want to be equal to them. Why do you want to be equal to people who are marked for destruction? That makes no sense. Because you want the things that they have. I don't care about none of the stuff these people have. I don't want it. I don't care about none of that. We could crack jokes, talk about it, but at the end of the day, I don't care about none of these people's cars, their watches, their clothing, or any of that. That stuff is irrelevant. You got niggas who feel proud to put the clothing of Italian homosexuals on their back. That it's a status symbol that you wear the clothes of sodomites. That's your business if you desire the clothes of sodomites. Just because you wear that doesn't make you a sodomite. Doesn't make you anything if that's what you desire. But do you desire that because you genuinely like the clothing? Or you genuinely just like the high quality materials that they use to make their garments? Or do you just want to be deemed to be equal to a bunch of other people? That's what you have to ask yourself. Do you really like Gucci for Gucci, or do you like it because you deem it as a symbol of success? Do you really want Louis Vuitton? Do you really want Fendi? Do you really like Dolce and Gabbana? If it wasn't for rappers, would you even know about this stuff? Not even just rappers, celebrities, period. Because the average person doesn't even follow high fashion. You only know about high fashion because of celebrities. You don't know about it because you genuinely like clothing. I know some people do genuinely like clothing, and they're into that. And you can tell people who genuinely like clothing because they're knowledgeable of it. Those are the ones who you can tell, like, oh, I can see why he wears Gucci. He's into that. But most people are not. It's a status symbol. Because you want to be equal to the people who you perceive to be greater than you in your own mind. And that's something that we have to reconcile. Why do we have that? See, those are trauma-based responses. And that trauma is a level of low self-esteem, which is why most of our people lead with we the Israelites, because you feel like that will give the people a self-esteem boost. When really they need a self-esteem boost from boosting themselves in their Elohim. That if you could cause them to understand who he is, what he's about, and the level of grace, mercy, and love and forgiveness which he extends to all those who return unto him to serve, love, and trust him, then that'll give all the self-esteem boost that they need, because they will be boosted in Elohim. What greater boost is that? See, that's another thing right there, man. Let me finish this verse 5. And hope make not ashamed, because the love of Elohim is shed abroad in our hearts by the Ruach HaKodesh, which is given unto us. But when we were yet without strength, in due time Mashiach died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man would even dare to die. Some would even dare to die. But Elohim commended his love towards us, and that while we were yet sinners, Mashiach died for us. Which, if you can recall, they were in Babylon. I mean, in Medes and Persia, it's all the same. They were sinners. That's why they were there. Because remember what we read in Ezekiel? Ezekiel was in Babylon. Always remember that. What Ezekiel was talking about in the 5th chapter, that was something that was going to come after. They were in Babylon when he got that. He said, much more than being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to Elohim by the death of his son, much more being reconciled shall we be saved by his life. Not only so, but we also joy in Elohim through our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, by whom we have now received this reconciliation. Now, again, I didn't want you to think about this here, man, because a lot of stuff, because you have to sit back and say, like, do you really want things because you want those things? Or do you want those things as a, like, there's dudes out here that they want a Benz because they want a Benz. They may have seen one when they was a child. They was enamored with it. They didn't, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't think about it in comparison to if you got this, you're rich. They just saw it and was like, oh man, I want to have one of these when I grow up. The same way that you got some kids, when they seen a Camaro, it was like, when I grow up, I want a Camaro. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to look at it. Now, especially in these days and time, you got people, they're into electronics now. So you have some people like, hey, certain electronics, this, what, and I say that because some people do that with phones. Some people are elitists with an iPhone. How are you an elitist about a phone? You would have to look at yourself and say, how are you looking down on someone and you're a consumer for a phone that you have to replace almost yearly if you want to be an elitist to keep up? It's just a phone. So are you feeling like that because you really believe in the phone? Or are you really that low down within yourself that about yourself that you feel like a phone will elevate you? The iPhone does not mean that you have any status or money, because most people don't walk in them places and buy a phone. Right, right. I mean, for me, I've told y'all this before. I only use an iPhone for one reason, because I didn't have a phone, and Nell sent me an iPhone 4S, and that was the first smartphone I had. It's the only one I knew how to use, so I'll just stay with what I know. If she would have sent me an Android, it'd have probably been the opposite. I'm just going to stay with what I know, and that's it. It's not, you got an Android. Like, nigga, you've got a phone. Who cares? They're for talking and texting and internet surfing or whatever you use them for. It's really not that deep. It's just a phone. Because I felt like, what is the purpose of spending all that money on something to talk on? But it's like that's kind of like how Apple set it up. Yeah, it was the marketing plan. Yeah. It was the branding strategy. Branding strategies, if you had an iPhone, you're of the elite. You're of a different class, you're upper crust. They played you. They played you. They played you, and you didn't even know you got played. You wanted to be played. They played you like a bass fiddle. And they do that with a lot of products, with the exception of luxury designers, because those people don't even market their stuff outside of cologne. Oh, they definitely are. Because I can tell you, just because for being into colognes, like when it comes to cologne, I've been wearing cologne since I was 16. My first bottle of cologne was Tommy Hilfiger, Tommy. And I can see that you have elitists in the fragrance community. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you an elitist about buying something? You're not producing something, you're consuming something. And you have a snobbish attitude about cologne. That junk is hilarious to me. You know what I'm saying? Looking down on somebody, how can you buy a clone? Because and it's not to get off topic, this point on topic. You could take something like Creed Aventus. It costs like $400 or $500 a bottle, depending on where you get it from. Usually it's going to be anywhere between $250 to $400 a bottle. There's a company called Armaf that has a fragrance that smells exactly like Creed Aventus and allegedly lasts longer. And it's $50. And people in the fragrance community will turn their nose at somebody who said, I'll spend $50 for this clone than to spend $400 for this Creed. Because you feel like if you got this Creed Aventus on, you're of an upper echelon of a fragrance wearer. Nigga, is you serious? You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, this is more Caucasians than black folks, but there's some black folks in it too. Because you have luxury fragrances. You know what I'm talking about? That's just how people look at it. Because everybody wants to have luxury stuff as a status symbol to show that there's somebody. That just shows the voids that are in the majority of human beings walking this earth. You would have to know that you were somebody with or without those things. And more specifically for us, because we say we the people of the living Elohim. So we shouldn't need any outside stimuli to make ourselves feel whole. When Mashiach was supposed to bind you up and make you whole. But we have refused to allow the doctor to do his good work. So therefore, there's still a rent in plane. Well, I just bought light blue intense. I'm thinking about grabbing this Michael Jordan joint, man. They say that joint smell like coffee, man. I ain't never had a Michael Jordan, man. They say this stuff be pretty good too, from what I've heard. But I'm definitely waiting on that light blue intense. I done had all type. I used to buy the same stuff over and over again. Why I bought so many bottles of Aspen and Hugo Boss in my lifetime? That junk don't make no sense. That's why I used to just wear all the time. Aspen and Hugo Boss. You know what I'm talking about? But see, I'm into that. So I mentioned that because I can spend $200-300 on a fragrance because I like fragrances. And I'm not gonna run and tell you, hey, this is $300. I'll tell you that if you ask, and I say, hey, if you can find it for a cheaper price, then by all means do that. You know what I'm saying? But that's something that I like. That's not for other people. I just share my hobby with other people because I believe that all men should smell good, no matter where you're going and no matter what you're doing. Like I said, I've been wearing it for over half my life. But once you get 30 years old, you definitely should smell like, you shouldn't be smelling like outside the sweat. I'll tell you that. You know what I'm talking about? And you shouldn't be doing it to get no women. Yeah, it don't hurt, but grown man. But I done told y'all that. The brothers know that. That's how I feel about it. You're supposed to have a free supposed to smell good, man. If your money allows you to do so. Because I don't go out the door without no fragrance. Period. Whether it's to work, whether it's to the gym, whether like I ain't even got to be going in the presence of nobody. Just shoot. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That just doesn't. It just ain't right. It's not right. You know what I'm saying? Back to Esther chapter 8. No, but you got to thank my mom and my auntie for that. Shoot. My mama used to have some Unifresh fragrances. I used to use her them. I ain't never been on that. Well, I always, well, son, want to be known for looking good and smelling good. Just as a man. That's just intrinsic value, how you feel about yourself. Yeah, that just shows how you feel about yourself. Esther chapter 8, verse 1. On that day, the king Xerxes gave the house of Haman, the Yahudims, enemy under Esther the queen. Mordecai came before the king, for Esther told what he was under her. The king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Took off that ring. What that sound like to y'all, taking off that ring and giving it to somebody? Remember, Haman means magnificent. He sent him over the magnificent house. That's right. That Joseph. Let's go look at it. Genesis 41. I will get this caveat to it. But don't go broke to go buy stuff you don't need now, too. Now, don't be going trying to spend money you ain't got to smell good or look good. Don't be a damn fool. And also, I'll tell you something, my Chandra, my auntie always told me, you ain't got to spend a lot of money to look good, and you ain't got to spend a lot of money to smell good. She definitely always told me that. Don't cost a lot of money to do. A lot of people feel like you got to spend a lot of money to look good. Now, the ladies, they can get by. They ain't got to spend a lot of money on their clothes to look good. You know what I'm saying? They can still get a quality garment. My perfume is different because ladies' perfume costs more than men, and they get less. So, do. Genesis chapter 41, verse 37. Euphoria. By who that's by? Calvin Klein Euphoria. She say her first perfume was Calvin Klein Euphoria. I remember that. I bought that doggone cologne out of Regency. Tommy Hilfiger's Tommy. And right after that, I bought Hugo Boss. And then Rodney put me on that Aspen. And I still got a bottle of Aspen. I got a bottle of Aspen on the dresser right now. No, I ain't gonna wear it tomorrow. My light blue and tint supposed to hit the mail tomorrow, so I don't know. It's gonna be. I'm not. No. I mean, because I think it's gonna be cold tomorrow, so I might not put that light blue. Tomorrow's supposed to be 60 degrees. I might still put it on. It's supposed to rain though. We will see. We will see. Genesis 41 and 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this? A man whom in the Ruach of Elohim is. Now remember, Joseph got spared for the same reason because he spoke good words before the king. Same thing in Mordecai. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Elohim have showed you all this, and there is none as discreet and wise as you, you shall be over my house. According unto your word shall all my people be ruled. Only in throne will I be greater than you. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I set you over all the land of Mizraim. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and he cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over the land of Mizraim. So when you come back over here to Esther chapter 8, the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. He said Mordecai what? In a position to rule. So when you look at taking off the ring, let's just look at ring. And of course, we know that's this ring, signet ring, but it's also a symbol of authority. It's for the signet ring. And the word is tabah, tet, ba, ayin, and tau. So we see that the sun is contained, or the sun is filled and has, with the experience or the converging of the soul of the covenant. However you decide to look at that. Because he's given him authority. He's turned around and he's given Mordecai authority over the magnificent house. Or Mordecai, the little man, or the humble man, is set up as the ruler over the magnificent house. We know that Yahusha is what? Let's look. Matthew 11 on John's front. Also, too, while it's in my mind, another thing from what I've assessed over the course of time, that has been a detriment to our people as a whole. Now, men are competitive, and men to want to compete, but the competitiveness is spilled over, which just makes it hard for men to cooperate with one another. Women are competitive, but they're competitive in a different way. They're competitive against one another. One of the worst things that women have been taught is to be competitive, because that makes women want to compete with men. And you never want a woman, you don't want, because if she has a mind to be competitive, she's going to compete with her husband, and she's going to be alone. Because no man want no woman who's competing with him. She's just not going to be with her. That's masculine. You know what I'm saying? It's a masculine attribute. You have to know, and the reason why I mention that about that, because like I say, the people who I know in the real estate sphere, they are competitive, but they're not competitive against one another, even though they're in the same field. And by definition, they are competitors, because they all seek to add value to each other, because they're concerned with the increasing of the group and not the vanquishing of the group. That is something that our people don't have. You want to compete to vanquish. You don't want to compete to develop and assist and to grow the collective. You know what I'm saying? It's a different type of mind frame. So I say, just listen, especially listen to that woman on that podcast the other day running her mouth. Like, that woman's competing with a man. She wants to be a man. I'm just being honest with you. Competition does not breed cooperation. The competition aspect is a Eurocentric thing. We've talked about that before. And in our culture, by righteous people, they did not compete. There was no need. They cooperated with one another. Because with competition, you have to have winners and losers. And you're going to have winners and losers. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with competition. But when you're looking at it on a macro level and a micro level, it's forth is taking a fractured people and trying to put those people back together again to make them whole in order to serve their power, who is greater than all, then there has to be cooperation. And competition will be a hindrance to that cooperation for the rebuilding of a fractured and scattered people. If you don't have a fractured and scattered people, then that's really not an issue. But when you're fractured and scattered, people have to cooperate, which is the purpose of having networks. That's what the cooperation is about. You're not going to compete with people in your network. You're all cooperating with one another in order to assist one another, so everyone can be at their best in order to benefit the whole. That's why the word is not taking root in people's heart like that, because a lot of dudes who teaching the word, they're competing against each other, not seeking to cooperate with one another for the benefit of the people of whom they say they serve. And of course, when that's happening, the women take on those attributes, and I said, then they begin to compete with the men. And a woman competing with the man will never lead to a harmonious home. You just have to look at that with all the people who turn away from Yahuwah and say they gods and goddesses, but still want to touch the word and this, that, and the third, because they're really competing against Yahuwah, because they want to prove that they're better than him. I'm telling you right now, a woman who competes with a man is the most disgusting and detestable thing that you would ever want to see. That's why also, when you look at it as forth as a family structure, families should never compete against one another. It breeds jealousy and envy, and it'll tear the house down. And you've seen that in regards to the scribes and the Pharisees, because they were in competition and they were willing to tear the house down. Because that's the only reason why they brought Mashiach, was for envy, because they were looking at, the people are looking at it, they were competing. You compete with outside people. You don't compete with your family. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember brother telling me that him and his friends competed. And to me, that was like the most asinine thing ever. Like, why are you competing with your homeboys? Never in my life did I look at one of my friends and say, I want to be better than him, and we just out here hustling, getting money. This is not a competition. I'm not competing against my friend. Why would I do that? It makes no sense to me. This is my brother. Why am I competing with my brother? What ends up happening, which I seen it in the streets, if that man excels past you, you don't begin to be proud of him and happy at his success and seeing how you can benefit him in being successful. You begin to envy him and want to take from him. and want to kill him. That's where the do not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's ass. That's where that comes from. That's why that's going to come from, because you're not going to be happy for your brother. Like, I was wild, this nigga telling me this, like, you and your homeboys who can get the most hoes, who do this, who does that? Who does that? Nigga, it is a true story. And I hate it because it's something negative. But me and my other homeboy, one of our homeboys finally touched 36. We hadn't touched it yet, but we were proud because for us, it was like, if he did it, we all did it. You know what I'm talking about? So we looking at how we can help him. We ain't looking at, oh, he got it, so I know he gonna break me off. That's not even a thought process. It was like, shoot, nigga, if he did it, we did it. Because we're not looking at it as this is three different people. It's all, for us, it's all one person. His success is my success. His failure is my failure. His pain is my pain. His joy is my joy. You know what I'm saying? That's it. As simple as that. But when you looking at your brother and you like, oh, this nigga, like they said, why you think a lot of niggas in the grave, man, niggas around here competing like hoes? Why you want to kill the man? Because you coveting on what he got. Because you mad. Maybe it just was his time. Maybe he worked a little harder than you. Maybe he didn't take a loss that you took. Why does it matter? That's why Yahushua told his apostles when they were arguing about who would be the greatest among you. And he was like, what is wrong with y'all? Y'all tripping. Because he had to stamp that out because they were competing against each other. He tell me, what's wrong with you? You thinking backwards, boy. Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. We can go grab it in Matthew 20, what I was talking about also. What Yahushua did to cut down that competition and cut that out and stamp that out. At that time, Yahushua answered and said, I thank you, O Abba, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hid these things from the wise and prudent and revealed them unto babes. Even so, Abba, for it seemed good in your sight. All things are delivered unto me and my Abba, and no man know the Son, but Abba, neither know any man Abba save the Son, and to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your soul. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'm going to say he's meek and lowly in heart. See, you can be competitive, but not be competitive. Meaning you're competitive in your drive to succeed, not to vanquish and conquer and overthrow another man. See, come over here in Matthew chapter 20. So those are machinations of Europeans, Hamites, Ishmaelites, and the such, not just Europeans alone. Those are the works of the Gentiles, the nations, the Hamites. That's what they did. That's what they do, I should say. When I say that, not to say that our people did not pick that up and do it. What I'm saying is that wasn't what we were taught. Your God didn't teach you that. Your God taught y'all to cooperate with one another. Yes, you out here doing your thing, get your stuff, whatever it may be successful and prosper, but cooperate with each other. That's it. Because Elohim already know. If you compete and one is lesser than the other, you're going to be envious. You're going to hate your brother, and you're going to take from him. And eventually, you're going to kill him, and you're going to defile my land because you're going to spill innocent blood, and you're going to move me to wrath. Matthew chapter 20. You can make it 20. I'm just telling you the end product of what Yahuwah already knows is going to happen. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, what will you? And she said unto him, grant that my two sons may sit, the one on your right hand, the other on your left in the kingdom. Yahushua answered and said, you know not what you ask. Are you able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with? And they said unto him, we are able. He said unto them, you shall drink and eat of my cup and be immersed with the immersion that I'm immersed with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given unto them who is prepared of my Abba. When the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the 2 brethren. Yahushua called them unto him and said, you know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your servant. Whosoever be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. So immediately he had to humble them. You move with indignation because you want to be as great as them. It's another place where they argue about which one of them would be considered to be the greatest. And he told them the same thing. Because if he wouldn't have stopped that and gave them that information, they would have been competing with each other upon his departure. And then the work wouldn't have gotten finished. He wouldn't even gotten started. Because the individuals would have been doing the same thing that we see brothers doing now, and that's seeking to bring honor and esteem to themselves. Back to Esther chapter 8. We are in verse 3. Esther spake yet again before the king and fell down at his feet and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite and his device that he devised against the Yahudim. So you see that he has feet that was swift from running to mischief. A heart that devised evil imaginations. He had a proud look. He had a lying tongue. He bare false witness. He wanted to shed innocent blood, and he was willing to sow discord. Then the chief held out the golden scepter toward Esther, so Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I found favor in his sight, and the thing seemed right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Yahudim, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Xerxes said unto Esther, the queen of the Mordecai the Yahudim, behold, I've given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Yahudim. Write you also for the Yahudim as it like you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring may no man reverse. So you have to understand that. That's when we were talking about what was in Isaiah 55 and Isaiah 46. You can't reverse the word of Yahuwah. Once that word come out of his mouth, it's not coming back, boy. It's going to do exactly what he said it's going to do. Then the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Yahudim, to the lieutenants, deputies, rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Yahudim according to their writing, and according to their language. Let's just look at India here real quick. India is Hadu. That means to flee away or give you thanks. It's a country surrounding the Indus. It's mentioned on the eastern border of the empire of Xerxes, Hindustan. Hindustan. And we all know Ethiopia. We don't have to read that. Verse 10, Esther 8. We're going to stop in chapter 8 this evening. God willing, we finish it out with chapter 9 and 10 tomorrow. And he wrote in King Xerxes' name and sealed it with the king's ring and sent letters by post on horseback, riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. When the king granted the Yahudim, which were in every city, to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and the province that would assault them, both the little ones, women, and to take spoil of them for prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Xerxes, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, the company The copy of the writing for commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people, and the Yahudim should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So what Xerxes has pretty much done is the 2 days that we acknowledged at the beginning of this so-called was a day that all the Yahudim stood up to avenge themselves on the people who sought to slay them by the directive of King Haman. See, I know a lot of us look at it, it's not a Sabbath day, that you don't have to keep it as a Sabbath day. But it's going to read it, and you'll see it tomorrow, why the people rested. Because a lot of us will look at it stuff that, it's not a sin, so I'm good. Versus looking at it, understanding what really go on. Since we don't talk about the book of Esther consistently and constantly, it's not at the forefront of your brain. But that was a day where the people celebrated, on a day that they were going to be slaughtered, that they were given permission to slaughter. So the same way where the beast seeks to destroy you, and Yahushua come through, and on the same day by his word, that a declaration of slaughtering is changed in order for you to do the slaughter. And we'll look at that more so, y'all will know tomorrow. So the copy of the writing for the commandment given every province was published unto all the people, that the Yahudim should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. This is verse 14 of the 8th chapter of Esther. So the post that rode upon the mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed by the king's commandment. The decree was given at Shushan the palace. Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel, blue and white, with a great crown of gold and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Of course, when King Herod came to see Yahushua, what type of robe did they put on him? A purple one. A purple one. You have that great crown of gold separated because they put that crown of thorns on it. You had that royal apparel, which speaks to dominion again for the Malkuth. Now that was the Malkuth Labush. So now you have the sovereignty or the dominion of royal apparel. That Ruach is upon him. And of course, that garment of fine linen, of course, when they laid him to rest, they put him in fine linen, things of that sort. Verse 16, the Yahudim had light, gladness, joy, and honor. And in every province and every city, wheresoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Yahudim had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Yahudim, for the fear of the Yahudim fell upon them. See, that's another conversation right there, man. That's a conversation that most brews going to overlook because they don't want to deal with that. It's a many people of the land became Yahudim. Now, the word here for became Yahudim is Yahad, Yad, Hey, Dalet. So they began to worship Yahushua because of his sacrifice. Simple as that. You got worship for your Yad, you got Yahushua, man with raised arms, and Yahushua for your Hey, and Dalet for your hanging. It means to become a Jew in fact or in fraud, or become Judaized. It's basically to become Jewish or become Jews or to convert. It said many people of the lands became Yahoo, or they converted. These people, and remember, what did we read in Esther 3 and 8? That we have what? Diverse laws from other people, did it not? And that we did not keep the laws of the king or the other people, did it not? So that means that these people began to live as you live. So that's your first instance in the text of directly seeing somebody who is not a Yahudim by the flesh become a Yahudim by belief, whether feigned or real. Because remember, it said whether real or fake, or saying they're Yahudim or not. I'll delve off into that more, y'all willing, on tomorrow. We start right there, though. Hallelujah for Yahushua and the word. I appreciate y'all time this evening, man. Bless y'all out the house. Elohim in the name of Yahushua. Prayerfully, everybody understood everything. Like I said, we'll pick up towards the end of that Esther 8 for a few matters. I know it's been a while since we talked about that last version. We'll go back over all this stuff. Got 2 more chapters. It's only 10 chapters in the book, Esther. 10th chapter ain't even that long. And we'll do that. Like I said, it's best for those who are not aware. We just deal with the whole book since we had 3 days back to back, 5 days, basically 2 chapters a day. And there it is. Book Esther is complete. So praise be to Elohim in the name of Yahushua for that. Prayerfully, everybody understand all things. Again, I bless y'all the house of Elohim in the name of Yahushua. I appreciate your time. Just weigh and consider. But most importantly, just take on the mind of your ruler. Take on the mind of your ruler, you'll be the most dangerous force on the earth. Keep the mind of the man, the ruler of the earth, and you will perish. Again, praise be to the living Elohim, our Abba and Shamahim, by his only begotten son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Blessings to y'all in the name of Yahushua. And again, you who are willing to the next time, and we'll do it again.